years in order to choose a new queen.
I don't know.
And the other question, what they thought about is that the king gives Esther Mordechai Beis Haman the day after he was killed. What's Pesach?
I was on Pesach. Very good. Yeah.
So now,
Beis Haman Asati La Esther was on Pesach. Very good.
So now,
Because chametz.
exactly.
Gemara Megillah, Gemara Masechtes Megillah.
No.
That Esther was busy with Bir chametz. Mordechai, yeah, gewaldig.
Where's that coming from?
I'll show you. I'll look it up. Tafasta? Ik heb gevraagd de wacht van Purim. Ik wil, ja. Ik wil. Nee, het gaat luisteren. Maar ik wil de wacht van Purim lernen wegen. De wacht van Purim lernen wegen Purim gedaan. Shalom Aleichem. Man bist verschwunden also von der Kader Aretz. You wrote to me 2 weeks back, you're coming back Thursday. Vayela Deineno. Yeah. Began with beginning as Esther. But now it's Rachel. Good, Baruch Hashem.
How do we know that there was a real Navi? No Saloi Shalom, the Hech Saloi Shalom. Why? Because the Gemara says, we say Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom. Why? Because Shem Yom is...
Yeah. You're going to say Hashem's name, yeah? Lashem Carbon, yeah.
The Navi doesn't have that problem, so no Saloi Shalom, the Hech Saloi Shalom, so we know that it was...
Say it. V'hechzel Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, yeah. It's another pshat. Macha pshat. Take from the Yeshua's Yaakov, yeah. Bruchim Abayim, welcome. A freiliche Woche.
Somebody asked me for about messenger yesterday. I want to see this mime.
I never did it. I did another mime. It's a similar concept, but not this one. This one we never learned. I'm sorry. If they go to the yeshiva.net to Torah Megillas Esther, they'll see all the Maimarim we did. We did like 4 Maimarim on Purim. The yeshiva.net. If you want, I can email you. Just send me an email and I'll email back, so I'll remember. Send me an email because I shouldn't forget. Yeah, Vahaven, yeah. אתה תלך להשתתף איתנו היום או לא נזכה עוד לזה? מרדכי נגרד wegen der Chalakim von Teira. Der gehst du Schusse, soll bleiben von der Gemara? Was sagst du? Maybe with Pchines, if he takes tests, so we could see that. Staza Sachen lernen jetzt. Es sind nicht Kiddischen auf Dollar. Okay. No, I have it here. I'm just looking if the book is here, Shulchan Aruch, but I guess it's not here. It's fine, I have it here. Okay. We are holding Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. Okay, let's Shas, known as the sugi of Shinui Makim. Shinui Makim means changing your location in the middle of your meal, changing your place, and the ramifications of that in halacha in terms of the brachas that you have to or you don't have to make when you change your location. Yeah. It began with the statement of Rav and Shmuel, who taught us that when they make Kiddush in Shul Friday night, and then you come home, Shmuel held you have to make Kiddush again, because he didn't eat in Shul. Rav held you don't have to make Kiddush again, because he doesn't hold you have to make Kiddush in the place of the meal. The halacha is like Shmuel, according to most poskim, that Kiddush is b'makayim su'uda. But both of them agree that you have to make a new boire pri hagafen. That the fact that you made hagafen in Shul doesn't exempt you from making a new hagafen on your wine if you're going to drink it in the house. In other words, even Rav, who says you don't have to make Kiddush again, he says when you sit down at home to eat and you want to drink wine, you have to make a boire pri hagafen, even though you made one in Shul and you drank. But you left the Shul, you went to your house, and now you drink wine, you have to make a new boire pri hagafen. Of course, according to Shmuel, you have to make a new Kiddush too. Of course, you have to make hagafen too. Rabbi Yochanan disagreed. Rabbi Yochanan said that actually, Shinui Makim doesn't require a new bracha. Even though you changed from one house to another house, as long as you know you made a bracha in one place, you could continue eating. The Gemara refuted Rabbi Yochanan from a brisa that says clearly that new wine, if you bring out new wine to the table, a different type of wine, you don't have to make a new blessing. The first hagafen goes on all the wines that you're going to drink in the middle of the meal. And I should add in parentheses that when you make hagafen in the beginning of a meal, even if you didn't wash, it also includes all beverages, right? Sometimes people don't realize if you're sitting, let's say, at a simcha, any time, a dinner, and somebody gives you a cup of wine, and you make hagafen on the wine, and then they bring out water, and people make a shahakal on the water, that shahakal is superfluous. You're not supposed to make a shahakal. Just like when you wash for bread and you make hamaitzi on bread, everything in the meal is included in the hamaitzi on the bread because it's all an accessory of the bread. So when you eat salad, the middle of a meal, you don't make ha'adama on the salad. Or you eat chicken, you don't make a shahakal on the chicken because you already washed for bread. The same is true. What hamaitzi is for food, hagefen is for drinks. Just like bread is the staple food, wine is the staple beverage, and therefore all of the beverages are included in the bracha of wine. But on the wine, hagefen, yeah.
No, if you drink water or soda or apple juice.
If you drank the water, no, they're not. I'm talking about. Then of course you know. I'm talking about. Let's say a person didn't wash. No, a person didn't wash. Just a regular. They're having a drink of wine. So the hagefen is yimaitzi. Yeah. Sometimes at Shabbos at a kiddush, after davening, a person makes kiddush, right? Drinks wine and then drinks a cup of seltzer, right? You don't make a bracha on that cup of seltzer because they already made a bracha on the wine. So the Brisa said, if you change the type of wine, you don't have to make a new bracha. But shinui makim, if you change your place, you do have to make a new bracha. And that refutes the view of Rabbi Yochanan who held that even when you go from shul to your house, you don't have to make a new boire pri hagafen. Then the Gemara quoted Reb Huna, Reb Chizda, who said in the name of Reb Huna, and the Gemara brought a support from a brisa of Rav Hinnik, or the son of Rav Hinnik, who said that when do you have to make a new bracha? It's only from a house to a house. But from a place to a place, within a house, you don't have to make a new bracha. Or as many of the Rishonim have a different gears in this Gemara, we see it clearly from their texts, not from a place to a place in the house, but from one corner to another corner. That only when you're going from a house to a house, or within the house from one place to another place, but in one room from one corner to another corner, you don't have to make a new bracha even though you change the location. These two girses in the text are very fundamental. The difference is very fundamental. Did he say from place to place, meaning from room to room, or from upstairs to downstairs, you don't have to make a bracha, or from corner to corner in one room? Obviously, it's very, very different halacha. But these are two versions in the text. Most Rishonim Agayra is only from corner to corner, you don't have to make a bracha, but from place to place in the house, you would have to make a new bracha, which would be similarly to what we said before by Kiddush b'Makam Seudah, that Shmuel used to learn on the roof, and when he wanted to make Kiddush, he would come downstairs and make Kiddush in the place of the meal. He didn't make Kiddush upstairs and then came down for the meal, because then he would have to make a second Kiddush, even though it was one house, but going from one floor to another floor is not considered the same place. So if I made Kiddush upstairs and I have the meal downstairs, it's not good. Even if I make Kiddush in one room and then I go to another room, some people have a foyer and they make Kiddush there. And then they go to another room and they eat the meal, it's not good. Unless there are those poskim who are matir that if in the place where you're eating you could see the room where you made Kiddush, even through a window. And even if you can only see part of the room, right? So there are those views that allow you to do the meal and not make Kiddush again. However, if you're coming from upstairs to downstairs, you certainly can't see upstairs from downstairs, so therefore you would have to make a new Kiddush in the place of the meal. Certainly if you're going from one house to another house, like from your shul to your house, you have to make a new Kiddush. But here we're not talking about Kiddush, here we're talking about brachas throughout the whole week. So that's the brisa that Reb Huna, that's the idea of Chizda quote in the name of Reb Huna, that from a corner to a corner, or from a place to a place, again, the two versions of the text, you don't have to make a new bracha. Then Reb Chizda came and introduced his own halacha. And his halacha really puts a whole new twist in this whole sugya, where Reb Chizda comes and teaches us, and this is like quite a loaded statement, that the whole halacha of shinui makam, the whole idea that you have to make a new bracha when you come to a new place, when you change locations, and you come to a new location, you have to make a new bracha because you left the first location, is only if you ate something that doesn't require an after bracha in the place where you ate it. But if it's something that requires a bracha achrayna in the place where you ate it, then we say, even if you take the food and you go to a new place, you don't have to make a new blessing. Even if you went to another house, even if you're eating in one house and you left this house and you go to another house, not only next door, even far away, and you continue the meal there, either you bring the food, you bring this food there, you continue the meal, you don't have to make a new blessing, says Reb Chizda, even though you changed the place. Certainly in one house, not. But the whole halacha of shinui makam, he says, doesn't apply here. Because we know that there are things that you eat and you have to make an after bracha in the place that you ate it. There are things that you eat and you don't have to make an after bracha in the place that you eat it. For example, bread, you have to do benching in the place where you eat the bread. Shahakol, bar nefashos, you don't have to do a blessing in the place where you eat it. So Reb Chizda says, if you ate something that requires you to make a bracha afterwards in the same place, so even though you left in middle to another place, you don't have to make a new bracha. Why? Because what's the logic that you have to make a new bracha when you go from one house to another house? The logic is that when you stood up, this meal was interrupted. Now you go to a new place, it's considered a new meal. Since it's considered a new meal, you have to make a new bracha. Because the old Seudah stopped, and the bracha was on that meal, and now it's a new meal. You have to make a new bracha, even though you're continuing to eat the same food. That's the svara that you have to make a new bracha. Says Reb Chizda, this is only true if you stood up and you stopped eating something that doesn't require an after bracha in the same place. Because then when you left, you interrupted this meal, and if you continue eating in a new place, it's considered a new endeavor. But if it's something that requires an after bracha in this very place, so even when you leave, you still have to come back. So you're only left temporarily because halachically you have to go back, because you have to make an after bracha in the place that you ate it. And even if you're going to continue eating in this place, in this new place, it's continue. You have to, because you want to make a bracha here, you have to continue eating here in order to make a bracha also for the first food. In other words, you have a choice. Either you can go back and make a bracha over there, because you have to make a bracha in the place that you ate, or you could continue eating in this new place, and then you can make a bracha achrayna on the new food and on the old food. But one thing is sure, the first meal was not interrupted, because even if you left, you still have to go back to that place because you have to make a bracha. And even if you're not going to go back, you're going to continue eating here and make a bracha achrayna here. When you continue eating here, what is it? You're continuing to eat here so that you should be able to make a bracha here also on that food. So it's a continuation to the original meal. The kiva kama hadar. Either way you look at it. Either you got to go back. You can't stay here. You didn't make a bracha achrayna yet. If you made a bracha achrayna on the first food, of course you have to make a new blessing on the new food. But since you didn't make a bracha achrayna on the old food, and you left, you got to go back. Halachically, you can't stay here. At some point, you're going to have to come back. You went to speak to somebody in another house, or you went to shul to daven mincha, or I don't know, whatever it is. You went to a neighbor, even a far neighbor, not next door. You're coming back. You got to go bench. Since you got to go bench, so you never really interrupted it. It was a temporary thing because you have to come back. Where if you don't have to make a bracha afterwards in the same place, then you don't have to come back. You left. Even if you come back, it's considered a new thing. It's not considered a hemshech. It's not a continuation. If you don't want to go back and you're going to continue eating in the second place, right? You're going to continue eating in the second place. It's not considered a new thing. You know why? Because if you want to make a bracha in the new place, it's only if you continue eating here, so you could make a bracha afterwards in this place. And that's the only way you could make a bracha here for the original food too, because if not, you have to go back there. The only way I could make a bracha here is if I continue eating here. Then I could make a bracha here. So that means when I continue eating, it's not a new endeavor, it's a continuation of the old meal, because this is what's going to allow me to make a bracha for the old food too. So it's always a continuation. Because it's considered a continuation, Reb Chizda says in such cases you don't have to make a new bracha. Fascinating halacha. The question is, what is considered food that needs a bracha achrayna in its aftermath in that place? And this is very relevant. And on this, there's three opinions in the Rishonim. From very elaborate to very narrow. The Rashba's opinion is very narrow. Only bread. Only bread. This is only bread. Hamaitzi, classic bread. When you're eating a meal with bread and you leave your house and you go somewhere else and you continue eating there, you don't have to make a new bracha. But if you're eating cake, you'll have to make a new bracha when you leave. Or if you're drinking wine, you have to make a new bracha. Or if you're eating figs, you have to make a new bracha. Everything besides hamaitzi is like bar nefashos in terms of not requiring a bracha achrayna in its place. That's the view of the Rashba.
Once you eat the bread, you're already part of the other place.
And if you eat the bread in the new place, you could bench there. If not, you got to go back. You got to go back. Now, it is true, again in parentheses, it's not so much negated this, it is true that when something requires a bracha achrayna in its place, lechatchila, you're not supposed to leave till you make a bracha. You're not supposed to say, I'm going to go and then I'll come back. Lechatchila, you're supposed to stay and make a bracha. Unless, when you made the bracha hamaitzi, you had in mind that you're going to continue the meal elsewhere, then it's fine. Then you could lechatchila go. You're going to eat somewhere else and you had in mind. But just to go away and say, I'm going to come back, lechatchila, you should not do that. Because just like this is a type of food, Shulchan Aruch Harav explains this in Kuf Ayin Ches, which is the simon dedicated to this sugya, Erechaim Kuf Ayin Ches in Shulchan Aruch. Just like there are foods that require a bracha achrayna to be made in that place, and that's the prominence of the food and the bracha, part of that chashivus is that you shouldn't leave without making a bracha. Just like you're supposed to be here, you also shouldn't just leave, even though you're going to come back. But if you had in mind when you made the bracha on the hamaitzi, for example, I go to a simcha, right, and I wash, but I want to eat lunch at home. Do I have to wash again? Do I have to make a new hamaitzi? I don't have to make a new hamaitzi according to Reb Chizda, right? Because even though I change places, since it's hamaitzi, I'm good. But what I have to do is I have to have in mind when I'm making hamaitzi lechem that I want to continue the meal of the bread in my house. In my house. Just to leave and come back, even though you're going to come back, the Chachamim did not want a person to do that. Yeah, even if a person says, I'm going to continue eating there, they should, lechatchila, they should not leave this place unless they had in mind. But if a person left the place and continues eating there, they could bench there. That's fine. So that's one extreme, that it's only bread. Then you have the other extreme, which is Rashi and the Rashbam. It's everything, including wine and shivas haminim, which means even mezainas, even figs, even grapes, even pomegranates. The only exception would be ha'etzes, ha'adamas, and shahakals that are not, don't get the al ha'michya, al ha'gefen, al eitz. Anything that goes into the bracha, al ha'michya, al ha'gefen, al eitz, which would mean wine, and any one of the species with which Eretz Yisrael was praised, figs, grapes, pomegranates, dates, olives, oil, shemen, zeis shemen, and of course, cake, ragalach, of course, hamaitzi. Anything that gets what's called a bracha mein shalish needs a bracha achrayna where you ate it, and therefore, if you leave, you don't have to make a new bracha. So if I'm eating dates, I'm having grapes, and then I go to your house, I don't have to make a new ha'etz on the grapes in your house. But if I'm drinking a coffee, or I'm eating a candy, I'm eating potato chips, or I'm eating an apple, and then I go to your house, I have to make a new bracha on the apple. So the Rashba says only bread, and Rashi and Rashbam say everything, even wine. And then you have the intermediary interpretation, which is the view of Tosfos here, and that is bread, yes, mezainis, yes, but that's it. Only grain, only the 5 grains. But when it comes to the other fruits, even though you make al hagefen, al ha'etz, or al hagefen like wine, over there we don't say this klal. That becomes like shahakal. And the truth is, there's no, in Shulchan Aruch, all 3 opinions are brought. All 3 opinions are brought, and the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch Harav gives the verdict and says from the Magen Avram, and he says, lechatchila, you should make a bracha achrayna on all these foods. In other words, if you drink wine, you have to make a bracha achrayna where you are. If you eat grapes or figs, you make a bracha achrayna where you are. But if you left, you shouldn't make a new bracha, because safek bracha is lahakal, since it's 3 different views and there's 3 perspectives. So therefore, lechatchila, you should treat each one with the stringency of not leaving without a bracha.
Bread too?
No, bread is no argument. Bread is no argument. On bread, everyone holds that's a classic case where you have to make a bracha achrayna in its place, and therefore, if you leave, you don't have to make a new bracha when you come to the new house.
What if he left and then he realized he didn't say the bracha? Can he say on the way from house 1 to house 2? Or he has to go back to house 1 and complete the bracha? Any
If a person left what's called b'shayig, they didn't realize that they didn't, they just forgot. So if they did it willingly, so then they should go back. If they did it b'shayig, there's actually 2 opinions. One opinion is they should still go back and do the bracha if they can, and one is that since they left b'shayig, they don't have to. So it's actually 2 opinions in halacha. Both are brought in Shulchan Aruch. Whether the person should go back. In other words, l'chatchila, I should not leave the place where I ate if it's a type of thing that I have to make a bracha on its place. Unless, the exception is if I had in mind by hamaitzi that I want to eat elsewhere, then it's fine. But if I didn't have in mind and I just leave, even if I have in mind to come back, it's not appropriate to do, and there was a reason for it. They were afraid the person may forget to come back, and and that would be wrong because they have to bench over there, A, and B, they may even stay there for a long time to the point where they digest the food and they won't even be able to make a bracha afterwards. Yeah, even if I'm going al manas to eat there, so it's good, I still shouldn't leave unless I had in mind initially, because part of the chashivus of this food is that I have to make a bracha before I leave. In other words, just like you have to make a bracha where you ate, you also have to make a bracha before you leave the place. Again, unless lechatchila I had in mind, because if lechatchila I had in mind, then this is not the place. This is the place, and that's also the place, because that was my setting, my mindset when I sat down to eat. Yeah. If you ate cake according to the Rashba, you don't have to make a bracha achrona where you ate. So therefore, if you leave, it's considered an interruption of your meal. So now when I go to your house, I make a new bracha because it's a new meal, because it's not a continuation of the old one, because the old one is gone, because I don't have to come back there to make the bracha achrona. Yeah, of course. When I finish eating the new cake, I'm going to make a bracha achrona on both cakes. Of course, I have to make a bracha achrona. No, you said cake. Did he bench yet? No. He didn't bench. So I ate a siddur, and I went to another place, which was wrong, okay, but I did it. I went to a new place, and I continue eating cake. I don't have to make a mezainis on the cake, because it's part of the first meal. That's the point. Oh, if you had intention, then you could lechatchila do it. Then you could lechatchila do it. If you had in mind when you made hamoitzi, you're going to continue the meal elsewhere, it's no problem. You could go sukkah hopping to 100 sukkahs if you want. Then lechatchila they should bench where they are. They don't have to wash unless they didn't protect their hands. If there was no hesach hadas, if you didn't take your mind off your hands and they're still clean, you don't have to wash again. Unless you went to the bathroom in between. The question is, you have to make another hamaitzi. We say you don't have to make another hamaitzi. That's the chiddush of Reb Chizda. You changed your place, it's a new meal. Says it's not a new meal. It's a new place, it's not a new meal. Where, if I was drinking a coffee and I went to a new house, and not only a new house, I take the coffee and I go upstairs. I finish the shir, I go upstairs, yeah? And I sit down there and I want to continue drinking the coffee. Right? I have to make a new shahakal. The difference is, and this is very important, between a house to a house and two places in one house. If you're going from house to house, even if I had in mind, when I sat down to drink the coffee, I had in mind that I want to continue it in another house, since it's something that doesn't need a bracha achrona afterwards, so it's considered a hefsek, it's considered an interruption, and it's a new drinking. My das doesn't help from house to house. Same thing. But if it's in one house, as we learned earlier with Kiddush B'Makom Suda, that if it's in one house and you had Kiddush and in your mind you decided you're going to continue it elsewhere, then you're also good, you don't have to make a new bracha. If you could see the place, then you don't have an issue. If it's one room or it's another room, but you could see it, so it's like one room, then you have no issue. I could go from here to another corner of the room, even if I don't see. For example, this room, there's a corner I can't see, but it's one room, it's under one roof and with the same mechitzas, so I don't have to make a new bracha. In one room, we don't have to ever make a new bracha, even if the room is huge. Let's say it's a chasana hall, and in the middle there's a huge, a beam or a platform, and you can't see the other side. But if it's one room, it's considered one place. It's not called shinui makam. And even if you didn't have b'deya, I didn't think I'm going to continue drinking or eating over there. But the chiddush here is that when you're dealing with bread, right, or cake, or figs or grapes, then even if you go to another house, you don't have to make a new bracha. Why? Because it requires a bracha achrona in its place. That's the chiddush of Rabbi Chizda.
You say you don't require it in its place. That means you can just go someplace else and make a bracha achrona, right?
That's the point. When you're eating shahakal, you could go somewhere. If I'm drink a bottle of water, right, I don't have to make a bar in the nefashos here. I have to make a bar in the nefashos, but I could do it in my car.
So wouldn't that be the svar the opposite then?
Why?
Because if you're making someplace else,
yeah,
that means continue some. I don't have to do it here. That means I don't have to make another bracha because I can make a bracha.
But I never have to come back. When I left here, it's for good.
It doesn't matter, but I can make it there.
That's the point.
Then you didn't break anything. It would be just the opposite.
No, but this su'uda is finished. This drinking session is over.
He's
No, I'm saying
you're
if
taking a
it's
bundle
not
with
over.
You continue.
It's not over because you can make a bracha achrona there, so it's not over. When you leave the place and you have to make it here, that's when it's over. So it would be just the opposite svara. Right? Then you should have to make another one. You're not tied to this place. You left. You broke it. How do you know you broke it? Because you can't make a bracha achrona there. That means you broke it. However, if you can make a bracha achrona there, that's when you didn't break it. So it'll be just the opposite.
No, the idea is as follows. Well, the question is, the second drinking in the new place, is it considered a continuation of the first, or is it a new endeavor?
No, it's a continuation. How do you know? Because you make a bracha achrona there. So it's a continuation. You're allowed to make one there. That means it's a continuation. So it's just the opposite.
No, I'm allowed to make a bracha achrona there because it's a type of food that is not so connected to place. In other words, the Chachamim say, when you eat an apple, you don't have to make a bar nefashos where you ate it. You can make a bar nefashos elsewhere, right?
Why? Because it didn't stop. Why can't you say that? Otherwise, how do you allow to make it there? You ate here, you didn't eat there. How can you make it there?
No, you won't have to make two bracha achronos. If I take the apple to my car or elsewhere and I continue eating it, I can make one burn nefashos for both.
Right.
I just have to make a new bracha, but I don't have to make a new after bracha.
So what?
Unless unless of course I made a bracha achrona on the first apple, then I eat a second apple, then it's a separate story.
All I'm
That's
saying
what
is
he says that it's not logical.
It's
Because
just
if
the opposite.
you can say bracha achrona afterwards in the second place,
Right.
how much more so you don't need to make a second bracha in the second place?
Because it didn't stop.
Because it didn't stop.
Exactly.
You're still making bracha.
No, the reason you can make a bracha achrona in the second place is because you don't need the place. On the contrary, the reason you don't have to make a bracha achrona in its place, you can make a bracha achrona in other places because you don't need to make it in its place. We don't care if the bracha is done in another place, but it's another place.
it's always another place. But since you could make it there, that means how do you make it there if it's how could you logically make a bracha achrona in another place if you didn't eat there? Because it doesn't matter. It continued. That's what I'm saying.
The bracha achrona elsewhere is going on the food that I ate in another place.
Right. So
Granted.
make another bracha.
Granted.
So you don't have to make another bracha. It's more so you shouldn't make another bracha. Because you know what I mean? It's going on the first place you ate. So the svara now is you shouldn't have to make another one.
The bracha achrona is going on the first food, but now you want me to make a new bracha on something new that I'm eating. It's something new, that's it. That's the point. It's something new. The bracha achrona is going to go on the first thing, you're right.
Right.
But now I'm eating something new. Is this a continuation from before?
Yeah. Otherwise, how can I make a bracha achrona then on the first one if it's new?
Otherwise, how he can make a bracha, which will be
Right.
this one and that one.
I ate there and I'm making here a bracha achrona. How could I do that? I don't know why, because it's going on the first place. So I shouldn't have to make another bracha then. So I'm saying it's just the opposite of Rav Chizda's saying. Logically, it should be just the opposite.
I think you're mixing up two separate inyanim.
Ginger ale in one place, and you go to the second place and drink your Coca-Cola. Why do you need to make a bracha on the second place?
What do you say? What?
You're drinking ginger ale in one place. You go to the second place and you drink Coca-Cola. Because you're going to make one bracha achrona, the question is, why do you need to make a
That's right.
bracha on the second Coca-Cola?
Right.
You can
That's right.
make, you can bring the same ginger ale. Doesn't have to be another. No, we're not.
It shows more you're continuing.
Doing
Otherwise, how could you make another one? How can you make a bracha achrona in the first place? You left. Elamai, if you could, that means it shows you continue.
Why do you say the nature of bread is to eat it in the place where you eat it? You're saying one first, any place where you eat it. But the nature of fruit, you can even take an apple off the tree and walk around with it. So as all said, you don't have to make the bracha in the place where you started eating it, where you ate it. Because you're moving around with it.
Let me clarify this, okay? I'm going to bring up another thing, and I think it will become clear. A big question becomes, we'll get back to your question in a moment. A big question becomes, and it's a very practical question. What happens? A person takes a jog. There's people around here take jogs with a bottle of water, right? With a bottle of water. So you make a shahakel, you drink, and you put it in your pocket or you hold it in your hand, whatever it is, and you start running. And every, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, as you're running your marathon, You take out your bottle and you drink. No. So there's a lot of shinui makom here. And it's not like the second place I could see the first place. I mean, the first, at some point you could still see it, but then at some point you're going very far, you're not going to see the first place where you made the bracha. What would be the halacha here? What would be the halacha here? And it's not only a question on water. Huh? Question, yeah. So the Mishnah Brura in Siman Kofayin Ches, he doesn't say it about jogging, but the Shulchan Aruch speaks about Hoilchei Drachim, people who walk, and l'chatchila they're eating on the way. They're l'chatchila eating on the way. A person is hiking or a person is on a long journey and they can't stop. So he speaks even about bread. L'chatchila, you're supposed to eat bread in a place and then bench there. But what happens if you're walking? So then the halacha says, since when you made hamoitzi, your kavanah was to eat the bread while you're going, so then the makom of the bread is not this makom. The makom of the bread is, as long as you're going to be walking with the bread, that's l'chatchila the makom. Just like when I make hamoitzi and I think I'm going to start the meal here and I'm going to continue with there. So the makom of this meal is not only here, it's there too. So that's why you could continue eating there. So it says in Shulchan Aruch that sometimes the makom could be, right, miles from here till there, and you could continue eating it the whole way, and you'll bench over there at the end. Why? You don't have to go back to the beginning, because as long as you're eating it the whole way, this was your kavanah, this becomes the makkah. So Mishnah Brura adds a very fascinating thing, that in such a case, so that's talking about bread. What if you're dealing with something that doesn't need a bracha, acharayna afterwards, right? If it needs a bracha acharayna afterwards, we say that as long as you continue eating, it's all a hemshech from the first meal. But if it doesn't need, like water, for example. So Yitain is as follows, that when you make a bracha rishona, and your kavanah lechatchila is, you don't want to drink it in this place. You're going to jog, and you're going to drink it throughout, then you don't have to make a new bracha. Why don't you have to make a new bracha? Because the whole idea is what? Shinui makom. You change the place. But here, what was the place? The place wasn't here. I'm a jogger. I'm starting here because I didn't start yet. But I'm going to drink in 5 minutes and 10 minutes, a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles. So it's all the same place. It's not considered shinui makom.
Place is the track.
Huh? The track is the place. The track is the place. Yeah. Unless I sit down to have the water here. And then in the middle, I decide I want to go jogging, right? Or I sit in my yard to have the one. And I say, you know what? Let's take a jog. Then already, as long as I could see the first place, I don't have to make a new bracha, right? But when I go far away, then I have to make a new bracha because l'chatchila. Which I thought, based on this, it bothered me. People take a coffee here, in that room or upstairs. They make a shahakal right when they take the coffee because they want to drink coffee. Then they come into the shiur, right? And they don't make a second shahakal, okay? Based on what we're learning, l'chayri, you need a new bracha, right? Ah?
No, from that
Okay.
room, you can see this. You can see a piece of it.
Yeah, I did that this morning. I made it there. But I knew I was going to...
Oh, so if when you made the bracha shahakal you had in mind to go to another room and it's in one house, then it's good. But very often a person doesn't have that in mind. They just make a shahakal. And then they come, right? People go upstairs, l'chayri, you have to make a new shahakal. Even worse is, you go out of this building and you go into the tent. You're getting ready for Shachris. And now it's not even the same house. Now it's a house to a house. Where even das doesn't help. So l'chayri, you have to make a new shahakal. Yeah. And this mamash, you have to make a new shahakal. In the house itself, from a room to a room, there are poskim. The Mishnah Brura finds a heter that in the same house, he says the fact that the world doesn't do this is because he finds that there's room to be matir in one house, just like from corner to corner, even without das. Okay, but certainly with das. But you go from the house outside to the car, people go with the coffee with the car, it's mebayis labayis, and even if you had das, it doesn't help. But the truth is that there's something important that you have to realize. And that is, when people make a coffee here and they're going to their car, right? What's their das? Where do they want to drink the coffee? They want to drink the coffee near the machine, and then they decide, no, I want to take it to my car. L'chatchila, when you make the coffee, you know that what? You're a jogger. You're starting here, you're going to your car, then you're going to meet somebody who has a good cigarette, and then there's breakfast, and then somebody's making a bris. In other words, that was just in humor. L'chatchila, when you take the coffee, it's not to drink in that room, right? You want to maybe start it in that room, but that's not where you establish yourself to drink. If you establish yourself to drink there, then it's a problem. If you go outside, you have to make a new bracha, because it's not mezainis, it's not figs, it's not grapes, it's not pomegranates, it's water, it's coffee. But if you didn't establish yourself, and the whole inyan l'chatchila is you want to walk around, so then it's like jogging, it's like hol chidrachim, and then you don't have to make a new bracha. You don't have to make it. But a practical example is if I'm sitting here with a coffee, I didn't have kavana to walk around with it and go from here to the shir. I'm sitting here, it's a certain kviyas, and now I go upstairs and I continue drinking. I would have to make a new bracha shahakal, because it doesn't need a bracha achrayna b'mkaimai. What do we see from here? Unless I had das when I made shahakal, that I want to go and drink it. But if I'm going outside, das is also not going to help. Lav dafka, not by me. Maybe by you. Because you don't show up often. But if you would show up often and you would have a kviyas, then it wouldn't be. I'm just joking. Oh, so why am I bringing this up? Not only because it's very practical, but also because it's negaya to the inyan. In other words, if the makam lechatchila is not a makam, if the makam lechatchila is 20 miles, that's fine. But if the makam is a makam, if I sat down, you're right, if I take a bag of potato chips, right, from the machine, and I don't want to sit and eat it, I just want it. I start here, I start there, I start there, then you could taina very much, based on this Mishnah Brura, that you're like hol chidrachim, and lechatchila, the makam is not the makam. You didn't want to eat potato chips here. You wanted to eat it here, you wanted to eat it in the tent, and you wanted to eat it in your car, and you wanted to eat it in your house, and you wanted to finish it off in Evergreen. In other words, you're in a mobile state, which, by the way, the Chazal weren't so familiar with this, because they didn't live that way. You understand that? They didn't have vending machines with potato chips, and you start walking around. It didn't exist. So they have a case of hol chidrachim. Yeah, people are walking. That's why it's brought taken in Shulchan Aruch. But this concept, but I thought in jogging it's a very practical thing because people drink water, and I was wondering, people don't make new brachas because you would have to make a bracha 40 times. Huh? Biking, yeah.
Starbucks mugs. Everybody just starts in one place.
Yeah, he buys it in Starbucks. He's leaving. He's paying money. So when he makes shahakal in Starbucks, what's his kavana? It's a very serious issue here. So b'meila, the fact that I could make a bracha achrayna elsewhere is simply a leniency that even in a different place, they let you catch up on your bracha achrayna. It's a leniency, but it's a new makayim. And since it's a new makayim, it's considered a new suda. It's considered a new suda. And since it's considered a new suda, it's not a hemshech of the previous suda. And because it's not a hemshech of the previous suda, so the original bracha can't apply on this food. The bracha achrayna, there's a leniency that in another place you could make a bracha achrayna. It's a leniency that even though you're in a different place, in a different location, and your meal ended, you could still make a bracha achrayna there in a new place, even though it's disconnected. But to say that the food in the new place should get the bracha of the original place, the bracha achrayna doesn't have to have the original meal. The bracha achrayna is a new thing that they let me do in another place. But now you want that the original bracha should connect to this new meal in a different house on something that doesn't require a bracha achrayna b'mkaimai. This is where Reb Chizda holds it's not true. And the Gemara says that Reb Sheshes argues. Reb Sheshes says absolutely no difference. I don't care what type of bracha achrayna it is. Even if you're eating bread and you go out to another person's house or you go upstairs and you have to make a new hamaitzi. No difference. Reb Sheshes argues with Reb Chizda that there's absolutely no difference. Why? Because the fact that you have to come back to make a bracha achrayna doesn't have bearing on the fact that there's a new suda here. You left physically, shinui makam is a physical fact. You're in a new place and therefore it's an interruption and you have to make a new bracha. That's the svara of Reb Sheshes. Where Reb Chizda says it's also a new place, but since legally you have to go back, or you have to continue eating here in order to make a bracha for there, so it's all one thing. Even though physically it's a new place, where Reb Sheshes looks at the physical geography and says, you left, you're in a new place, it's a new experience, even though halachically you're connected, but physically you're not connected. And therefore, Reb Sheshes says that you have to make a new bracha, even if it requires a bracha achrayna b'mkaimai. Well, when you're sitting in a car, you're in one place. It's like you're in a boat or in a wagon. Yeah, because if not, you're going to have to make a bracha every single second, every single 5 seconds in the car, right? Again, the Chazal weren't used to this, not only because they didn't have cars, because the concept of eating was more associated with hamakim. Today, it's the McDonald's era. You know what I mean? It's called fast food. We live in an era of fast food. Fast. So these concepts become, but a car is considered one place. If not, you're going to be you have a serious problem. Whoops. Burn the fushes for coffee? Why not? Okay, you have to drink 3 or 4 ounces, right, within the shear. If it's well, you have to know how you drink it. Usually, by the time the coffee gets to the end, the cup gets to the lower part, it's not so hot. And very often, the last 3 or 4 ounces, you drink pretty besmichas, you would have to make a better nefashas. So if you take a sipping along, and you don't do a shear revius, right? Also in that shear, then take a not. But so you have to push it, no. You have to be in halacha, you have to be conscientious of what goes into your mouth, and also what goes out of your mouth. What goes into your mouth and what goes out of your mouth. You have to be conscientious. It's called das. Imein das avdallah minayin. Another important ta'ara has to do with going to the bathroom. What's the halacha with going to the bathroom, right? For example, according to Reb Sheshes, you're having a Shabbos meal and then you go out to the bathroom. Do you have to make a new bracha? Or a poor man comes to the door, a meshulach comes and wants money. So if you stay in the room, it's not a problem because it's one room. But if you go outside, right, and you speak to him, and you give him a dal, and then you come back in, you have to make a new amaitzi, right? Or forget, let's say you're having dinner, you're eating steak, you're eating a piece of chicken, yeah? Somebody comes to the door, you go outside, or you go to the bathroom. It's something that doesn't have a bracha achrayna in its place. So l'chayda, you come back, you have to make a new bracha. But here, we don't say that. Huh? Right, because this is a completely different idea. Shulchan Aruch Harav brings this out, the Lavush brings this out. In other words, here, it's people have to go to the bathroom. It's part of the plan. In other words, it's not considered a hefsek of shinui makom if I go out and I have a long conversation with somebody, or I go to shul, for example, right, and I come back to my dinner, or I go to have a long shmooze with somebody outside, again, outside the house, or these types of things where it's a serious hefsek. Then I would have to come back and make a new bracha. According to Reb Sheshes, hamaitzi, and according to Reb Chizda, shahakal, let's say on my chicken. But if I went to go to the bathroom and I come back, I don't have to make a new hamaitzi. You have to wash your hands if you go to the bathroom, right? But you don't have to make a new hamaitzi. You don't have to make a new shahakal. Or you had a short conversation with somebody, because this is not considered a hefsek, because it's l'chatchila, a very temporary thing where I just, for a second, I took a telephone call in another room and then I come back. Yeah, but if I go out to another room, for example, to have a business meeting or a serious conversation, then I come back, it's considered a hefsek. The same is true, people snooze off in the middle of the meal. You're shinas arai. Do you have to make a new bracha? You're physically there, but you're sleeping. So again, if it's a shinas kva, if you go to sleep on the couch, some people go to sleep on the couch and then you come back, you have to make a new bracha. But if it's a shinas arai, meaning a temporary short sleep, it's not considered a hefsek because it's part of the fabric. It's not. These types of things are not called. According to most poskim, it's not called a hefsek.
If you're eating,
Yeah.
eating at the food sitting there for 4 hours, you eat something in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then you eat something at the end. It's considered one continuation, even though you may be.
No, if you're in one place, it's not a problem. You can have conversations as long. If you're in one place, then there's no question.
If you didn't eat for 2-3 hours.
I mean, it's a digestion. That's a whole different inyan. That you have to make a bracha achrayna before before the shared digestion. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It doesn't cancel out if you're sitting there.
But mitzat shinui makam, it's not an issue. Mitzat hefsek, the same place, is never an issue. You can have a conversation with somebody for 6 hours. That's not the issue. Okay, so this is the two shittas of Reb Sheshes and Reb Chizda in this sugya. In this, yeah. I should just clarify one thing, and that is one of the reasons that Tosfos argues with the Rashbam. The Rashbam holds that even wine needs a bracha achroina in its place, and therefore you don't have to make a new bracha. And Tosfos argues, Tosfos says it's only cake or bread, only, not wine. One of his rayas is because Reb Chizda is arguing with Reb Sheshes. And if the Rashbam was right, Reb Chizda would also be arguing, you said this last time, with Rav and Shmuel. Because Rav and Shmuel said that in Shul you drink wine and you have to make a new Boida Pri Hagafen in the house. But Yayin is something that needs a bracha achreina b'mkaimai. So if the Rashbam was right, you don't have to make a new bracha on wine. The fact that Rav and Shmuel say you have to make a new bracha on wine, and Reb Chizda is arguing with Reb Sheshes, not with Rav and Shmuel, is Tosfos' proof that wine is something that doesn't need a bracha achreina in its place, only cake and bread. And that's why if you would drink wine, he holds that you would have to make a new bracha in the new place, and Reb Chizda wouldn't argue with that, because we see Reb Chizda is not arguing with Rav and Shmuel, with Reb Sheshes. According to the Rashbam, you have to say Reb Chizda is arguing with Reb Sheshes and with Rav and with Shmuel, because they hold that wine is something that you have to make a new Boida Pri Hagafen, and according to the Rashbam, wine you don't have to, because it's something that doesn't need a bracha achreina bim kaimai. Another interesting ha'ara, this is mashma from Shulchan Aruch Harav. If you sit down to drink, let's say, coffee, and there's a certain kviyas, and then you go to the bathroom outside and you come back, it's not considered a hefsek. Why is it not considered a hefsek, even though I don't need a bracha achreina b'mkaimai? Because I didn't go out to be mafsek. I went out because I had to, and I want to come back. It's not like I go to shul to daven, or I go to have a long conversation with you. It was, or somebody just called me, and I came back. But he says, if it's l'chatchila something that the whole thing is temporary, you didn't sit down. For example, a person takes a bottle of water, yeah, and they want to stay in one place. They're not moving. If they're moving around, we said l'chatchila it's not an inyan. But he says if there's no kviyas, and then you go out even for a temporary reason, it could be that it's oiker, the first one, because arai can't be oiker a kva. But for that you need a kva. If it's l'chatchila arai, it could be a strong svara, he says, tainas, that you have to make. That's the mashmos there. Okay. So now, what are we left with? We're left with this huge machlokes between Reb Chizda and Reb Sheshes. And the Gemara wants to disprove Reb Chizda. Doesn't want to. It just has a problem with Reb Chizda. And the problem is that we have a clear brisa. And the brisa says that if there was a chabura that was drinking, and there was a chassan and a kala, and they left to the chassan and the kala, we said that the only way they don't have to make a bracha when they come back is if they left somebody there. If they left somebody there, right. And that's a very important yesod in halacha. That besides everything we spoke about, there's another issue. And that is, if I'm eating dinner and there's chicken, and I eat chicken, and I leave, but somebody stayed at the meal, right, and I come back, then I don't have to make a new bracha. Why don't I have to make a new bracha? Because the fact that somebody was there, it means the meal didn't get interrupted. So here you have to remember, all these halachas of shinui makom apply to two situations. Leaving and eating elsewhere, or leaving and coming back and continuing the meal. It's always identical. You understand? This is very important. Just like when I leave somewhere else and I eat there, we have a halach, I have to make a new bracha, right? If I come back, I also have to make a new bracha. Why? Because it's not a continuation of the meal. So I'm eating chicken, or I'm drinking coffee, and then I go out and I come back, right? I go to daven, let's say, I come back, I have to make a new shahakal. Why? Because it's not a continuation of the old coffee. Huh? Even if I had in mind. But if I left somebody here, right, we were drinking coffee together, I left somebody here, or by dinner I left somebody, and then I come back, then what? It's a hemshech, because he kept the seats warm, so to speak. So it's not continuing interruption. I don't need a bracha achroina afterwards. So what? Bimkaimai, so what? But I left somebody here. That is like something that needs a bracha achroina, bimkaimai. It's better even, because it's not only a bracha achroina, there's a person physically here. So that's a very, very important yesod. But the fact that I leave somebody behind doesn't help me that I don't have to make a new bracha there. It just means that if I come back, I don't have to make a new bracha here. But if I go there, I have to make a new bracha there. So the Gemara says from here, you see that it's only if you left somebody behind. But if you didn't leave somebody behind, you have to make a new bracha. Right? You have to make a new bracha. So the Gemara says that's the shit of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda had that unique shitta. What was his shitta? His shitta was that It's always about if you left somebody behind, and if not, you have to make a new bracha. But the Rabbanan don't hold like that necessarily, and therefore Reb Chizda has not been refuted. Okay. I want to point out another very interesting machlokes that comes up in this sugya. Another very interesting machlokes, and if you'll take a look at the lashon of the brisa, and that's really where it comes out. If you take a look, Kuf Aleph Amid Beis, mamash the middle of the page, the line starts Levarech and Meisve, right? Meisve. This is the question on Reb Chizda, Meisve. I just want to read this brisa. Bnei Chabura shoyim mesubin lishtois v'akru raglein lotzis likras chasanai likras kala. That was their justification to leave. They didn't stam leave. Kshehin yoitzin ain't tu'unim bracha l'mafreya. When they leave, they don't have to make a bracha achroina. L'mafreya means a bracha retroactively on what they ate. Kshehin choyzin ain't tu'unim bracha l'chatchila. B'medvar amunim kshehin nichusham zakin l'chayla. Avaloi nichusham loy zakin v'loy chayla. Kshehin yoitzin tu'unim bracha l'mafreya. Kshehin choyzin tu'unim bracha l'chatchila. If they didn't leave anybody, when they leave, they have to make a bracha achroina. And when they come back, they have to make a bracha rishayna. Which is a big question on Reb Chizda, because he holds that on things that require a bracha achroina b'mkaimai, they don't need another bracha, right? And it says akru raglein, and he teaches akru raglein means they uprooted their feet. Why did it say they uprooted their feet? Meaning really they had to stay there. Why they have to stay there? Because it's something that needs a bracha achroina afterwards, and that's why they had to stay there. And yet they left. And we say they have to make a new bracha afterwards because they didn't leave anybody behind, which is a contradiction to Reb Chizda, because Reb Chizda would hold that if they come back, they don't have to make a new bracha. Why? Because it's something that required a bracha achroina b'mkayim, and it's not considered a new meal, even if they didn't leave anybody. That was the question. The answer was this goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. But the Bryce also said something else. When they leave, they have to make a bracha achroina on what they did already. And here it's interesting how this line became a source of a major machlokes, two different shittas in Rishonim. There's the shitta of the Rambam and the shitta of Tosfos right here, which trickles down all the way to halacha, all the way down. What's the big argument? The big argument is that according to the shitta of the Rambam, okay, that when you leave and you start your meal elsewhere, yeah, it's considered a completely new meal. And because it's a completely new meal, not only do you need a new bracha, you also need a bracha achroina on the first meal. Ad kedei kach. And that's how he teaches this Gemara. When they leave, they need to make a bracha achroina, and when they come back, they need to make a bracha rishayna. This is a new meal. So just like the second meal needs a new bracha rishayna, the first meal needs a bracha achroina. That means, let's say there was a chassan and a kala, and they ran out without making a bracha achroina. They were supposed to, but they ran out. And now they come back. What do they have to do? Not only do they have to make a new bracha, they also have to first bench on the old, which is fascinating. So they were eating bread, they leave, they didn't leave anybody behind. They left anybody behind, it's not a problem, they could continue. They didn't leave anybody behind, right? They come back, they have to bench and make hamaitzi, a new hamaitzi, ad kedei kach, because they didn't leave anybody behind. Of course, this is according to the shita of Reb Sheshes, that you have to always make a new bracha, even if it was bread. Reb Chizda would hold also if it's not bread. If it's bread, he would hold not. But if it's not bread, you'd have to come back, right? Make your boire nefashos on your food, and then continue your new meal. Ad kedei kach. This would be a gewalt. That's how they teach yoitzin, and they have to make a bracha, and then a new bracha rishayna. Why are they picking chassan and kala? Because that's the reason that they were rushing. Why didn't they bench? It wasn't some an attraction. The ice cream truck came and they ran away. It was a chassan and kala, and it was l'tzarich mitzvah. So you might think l'tzarich mitzvah is different. No, it doesn't have to do. Taka l'tzarich mitzvah, but they still have to make a new bracha. And Tosfos disagrees. Tosfos says that's not the vart. The vart is when you change your place, nobody holds you have to make a bracha achroina on the old food. It just means you have to make a new blessing on the new food. But the bracha achroina, it's not a complete interruption. But rather, the bracha achroina could be on both. That's the shit of Taisus. The Brisa says when they leave they have to make a bracha l'mafreya. He says it's not a din, it's an eitzah toiva. It's good advice. Why? You're leaving, and you may be there for a long time, and by the time you come back, it's already after digestion, and you'll miss your opportunity for Birchas Hamazon. So therefore, it's a good eitzah that before you leave, you should bench first. But what if they did it? What if they didn't and they left? Then when you come back, you don't have to make a new bracha achroina and then a bracha rishona. Rather, you could just make a bracha rishona. So he teaches that that's what the Brisa means. The Brisa says, "Kshein yoitzin to unim bracha lemafreya." When you leave, you have to make a bracha before you go. And if you did that when you come back, obviously you have to make a new bracha because it's a new meal. The chiddush is, even if you didn't, and you didn't make a bracha achrona, when you come back, right, you still have to make a new bracha before you continue. This is, of course, all if you didn't leave anybody behind. But if you left, if you didn't leave, but if you left somebody behind, you're good. Have in mind doesn't help. If you leave the house, first of all, they didn't have in mind. They were in the middle of the meal and they left. But even if you have in mind, right, if you leave the house to another house, you're still going to have to make a new bracha. Remember, das doesn't help for shinui makom only in one house, not in another house. Okay?
That's was before the Suda.
No, again, when I make the bracha, I had in mind that I'm going to be walking around or jogging with the cup of coffee, then lechatchila there was no makom. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says, right? There was no makom. But if not, I sit down to drink and then in the middle I walk outside, and I go somewhere else. I have to make a new bracha on the coffee. And according to the Psheshis, even on the bread.
I go into Starbucks.
Yes.
Have a cup of coffee.
Yes.
And I have in mind I'm going to take a sip there and go into my coffee.
Yeah.
So when I go into my car, I have to make another bracha.
Wouldn't have to, but if you also have washed with the intention of going in the car, then you wouldn't have to make a new bracha. You could keep eating bread.
This is something you don't make them kind of. You don't make enough bracha than kind of in Starbucks. You don't have to, so therefore you do have to.
Like the jogger example, he's having in mind. He's going to be maybe it's a
Make a motzi at shul for kiddush, then you decide to continue the motzi at home.
So why don't they make a bracha if the mokum is so significant? Why don't they say shakol niyev dvaroi b'mokum hazeh? Then I understand, I cannot, go anywhere. So it's
solve everything.
This.
Let me see if I have the Mishnah Berurah here.
The restaurant or whatever it is, If it's a mokum is so essential, why not to mention? Are we making bracha on the food, or if I go
You know how to get the Mishnah Berurah. You know which one? Siman Kufay and Ches. So that would be the base with the Mishnah Berurah is Kufay and Ches Arachayim. So that was Zayin Beis the Gimel. Beis the Gimel. Machzich Kufay and Ches. You're asking a shaila. Generally, we say mebayis labayis. Das doesn't help, right? Das doesn't. Like kiddush b'makom suda. I make kiddush here and I have in mind to eat a meal there. Doesn't help. I have to make a new kiddush. Same thing here. Shinui makom. I'm eating here and I have in mind. I'm drinking this coffee. I have in mind. Yeah, I want to continue there. It's very nice, but I was mishana makom. I went to a new place. Yeah. But medvarim amurim if lechatchila there was a makom. That's the vart. If lechatchila there was a makom.
So the jogger would have to make his first sip outside.
Huh?
So the jogger
Oh.
would take a sip already in the road.
If I sit down a makom here, right, and I have in mind, at some point I want to go elsewhere. That's called a shinui makom. I'm going to need a new bracha. If lechatchila there's no makom, that's the vart. Hol chedrachim lechatchila there's no makom. L'chatchila I'm on the run. In other words, not that the bracha was here, and then in middle I changed places. But l'chatchila there was no place. So that's what I was saying. That I think the heter here, according to this, is that people l'chatchila don't have a sense of makam. Right? Even if I'm taking a sip inside, yeah, it's not like I want to drink coffee inside and then in the middle I want to leave. There was no established place for it. So when I made the bracha shahakal niya b'dvarei, which place was it? Everywhere. Here, by the tent, my car, and my house, and then my office, like the jogger. I think that's the distinction. When you nash all day, you have to taka. You're saying, yeah, that's the limut schus. That's what I think is a limut schus today. Because a lot of people don't know these halachas, and they're really relevant halachas. Very few people know these halachas, you see. So I'm trying to be malamed schus. Based on this Mishnah Brura, let me read you his lashon. So I just... Yeah, but I'm saying people jog constantly with bottles of water. How often do you make shahakal on that bottle of water? I'm asking you, how often do you make shahakal? Huh? Oh. So Shulchan Aruch says if you ate bread in one place, then you eat somewhere else. You make Birchas Hamazon in the second place. Just like people who are traveling and they're eating while they're traveling, while they're walking, and they eat a whole time, and they bench where they finish eating. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Yeah? And it's not a problem, and the reason is even though they don't see the first place where they left, they walk and walk and walk, and they go so far away from the original place, why don't you have them make a new bracha, even according to the Shita, that you make a new bracha on bread? And the answer is because they never had a place. The whole kviyas was to walk. The kviyas was that there's no kviyas. When we washed and made our moitzi, what was the mindset? We're not sitting down to eat. We're walking and eating. So where's the place? The place is wherever my feet go. That's the place. So it's a very big place. So it's not called uprooting a place. They're not oikrin. It's not shinui makam. Shinui makam means you have a place, and then there's shinui makam. If there's no makam, it's not shinui makam. It's not shinui makam, yeah? So you say, well, you left your place. It's a new meal. What do I mean? I didn't have a place. There was no place. This meal was, usually a meal is fixed, right? This is not a fixed meal. What happens? Okay, very important. What happens if they decided, when the kids are going on a hike, let's say, and they stop for lunch, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? So if they wash and the counselor says, guys, we can't stop, eat on the way, it's not a problem. But what happens if they sit down to eat? They sit down to eat, and they want to eat where they made hamoitzi. And then in the middle, he says, it's late, we got to go, middle of the meal. He says, now you're going to have a problem. Why? Because you were kaveya. You were kaveya your makam, right? So he said, as long as we hike and we could see the first place where we made hamoitzi, then you could continue without a bracha because it's one place. But if you go so far away and you can't see the original place anymore, right? Or you make a turn, or there's trees blocking you, so then it's called shinoi makam. And if they were eating fruits, if they were eating bread, we said it's not a problem because it's according to Reb Chizda. But if they were eating fruits, right? If they were eating fruits, they would have to make a second bracha. And bread, according to the shitta of Reb Sheshes. What happens if he's outside? And initially, when he made hamaitzi or he made ha'etz, he thought, I want to eat a little bit in one place, and I want to continue eating it as I walk. Yeah, we have 5 minutes. Let's start here. So when you made the bracha, you had both things in mind. I want to start here. It's not when you made the bracha, you decided to eat here, and then you changed your mind. Then we said it's shinui makam. But if you didn't change your mind, that was your mind. I want to start here, and I want to continue on the road. So he says that would work. That would work. Even if you're walking in a way that you can't see. Why? Because if it's mi bias lebayis, das doesn't help. If it's mi bias lebayis, das doesn't help. In other words, you're in the bias, and then you go out to another bias, or you go outside, your das won't help. So if you start eating in the house, yeah, and then you go outside, it's like mi bias lebayis. that your das won't help, and you would have to make a new bracha. So that's very interesting. You would have to make a new bracha. So now is a question in Starbucks, right? We learned before, if you're lechatchila outside and there's no makom, it's not a problem. Even if there is a makom, but you decided there shouldn't be a makom in middle, it's also not a problem. But he tainas that if you were inside, even if you had das, because you went outside, it's considered a serious hefsek. Why? Because you had a serious makom, and we said that mebayis labayis, it doesn't help. The jogger was lechatchila outside. But if the jogger starts here, and in the mind he says, in the middle I'm going to go jog, we're saying you have to make a bracha mebayis labayis, right? Mebayis labayis. So he brings here that the Igros Moshe, Reb Moshe Feinstein, in Igros Moshe Chelik Bey says, this Mishnah Berurah with the blue with the dirshu. So he brings from Igros Moshe that this is only if you made a bracha when you still had to stay in the house. For whatever reason you had to stay in the house, so the house became the kviyas. But if you're already about to leave the house, so even though you start in the house, it's like you made the bracha on the path. You're considered holchei drachim. Holchei drachim means you're on the road. So if you're outside, great. And even if you're not outside, if you're about to leave, you're on the way out. And you don't have to make a new bracha. You don't have to make a new bracha. Huh? And he says, of course, if you take a candy, because it's shahakal, and you eat a candy, a lollipop, right, when you're about to leave the house. Yeah, you ever do that? Shalom, a lollipop? Okay. Ice cream, let's do ice cream, right? Ice cream. And while you're about to go out of the house, and then you leave the house and you're on the road. So he says, outside, you have to take it out of your mouth and make a new shahakal. That's the shit of the Chazon Ish. That would be your Starbucks question. But based on this idea, that das doesn't help. But according to Reb Moshe, you're okay if you sit down in Starbucks, even though you had bidayah to go to your car, it's a problem. But if you lechatchila holchei drachim, there was no makom. A few years. So again, if it's back to the jogger, if you're holchei drachim, in other words, there was no makom for your food. The whole yisoid lechatchila was what? That you're on the run. So it's not shinui makom. Shinui makom means I uprooted myself from this place, so it's a new suda. But there was no makom to do shinui makom. The makom here was everywhere. I'm jogging, I'm driving, I'm walking, I'm... So it's an interesting svara. If you're in the house and you have in mind to eat outside, even though you had in mind, right? You have to make a new bracha, because there was a kviyas in the house. But if lechatchila you established yourself as a holchei drachim, then das does help. Das does help. Because mebayis labayis or mebayis lechutz, since there was a kviyas, so this is called a shinui makom, it's a new union, even though you had a das. But the das doesn't help for the fact that you interrupted it and you went to a new place. But if there's lechatchila no makom, so then there was no interruption. That's the vart. If there's a makom, my das doesn't take away from the fact that there's a makom. There's a makom. You had in mind to continue somewhere else, okay? But it's a new makom. It's a new makom. But if there's no makom, you're saying, what's the difference? What's the difference if I'm hiking, if I'm jogging, or I'm inside and I decide that I want to jog later? What's the difference? It's part of my das. The answer is because here there was a real makom. And the shinui makom makes it a new su'uda if it's shahakal, right? But if there was lechatchila no makom, so there's no shinui makom. That's the vart. The vart by a hiking or jogging is not that there was a makom with das, that there was no makom. That's the Havana.
Here is a practical example. I try to go biking every week, and we go many times to the same places.
Yeah.
You could go 10 miles. You bring a water bottle, you take a sip here, a sip there.
Yeah, that's the very practical question.
You sit down to eat something in a place, with tables or
Yeah.
roof or something. So when you come to that place, and there are several options, you decide on one. I should make a new bracha because I'm sitting in a place that's meant for eating, like some pavilion,
Well, again, if the water, you started to drink the water on the outside, when you get onto the bike, people sit on the bike, they take a sip of water, and they start. So then we established, it seems like you don't have to make a new bracha, even if you go miles and miles. Why? Because you weren't oiker yourself from a makayim. When you made the bracha shahakal, it wasn't in this place. It was, you were on the road. You were a halchei drachim. That's the definition. Now you stop, so you don't have to make another bracha, because you're again halchei drachim. You understand? Unless you're eating a new food. I mean, if you're eating cake, you'll make a mezainis. And with mezainis, then you don't have a problem b'chlal, because it's something that needs a bracha achrona b'mkaimai. So even if you leave over there, we established that according to the B'chizda, it's not an issue.
If you go inside a building, so if you go inside, let's say someplace.
Go inside the building.
Oh, you mean you leave the road now and you go into a new place and you want to continue drinking the water. So you're saying this is now you went from no makam to makam.
Yes.
Oh, you sit down like you go into a l'chayda, you would have to make, like a rest stop. A rest stop. Then I think you would have to make a new bracha.
They're outdoors, but if it's cold or whatever, you can go inside.
You go inside and you want to now take out your bottle of water and drink it. So you established yourself with a makam. So now you went from no makam to makam. So now it's a shinui from loy makam to makam. I think you have to make a new bracha.
And then when you go out,
And then when you go out, you have to make a new bracha, a third bracha. Yeah.
Bottom line.
That's the bottom line. The bottom line is that before you drink, what do you learn from all of this? Be present. It's called mindfulness. People talk today about mindfulness. This is all about mindfulness, presence.
Today is even worse. People go from Paris to London. They wash because they know that they're not going to have a food on the plane. So they wash in Paris, they eat a little bit.
They go to London.
They eat a little bit, they finish in London, and never mention the same thing. That's requires 3 bro. He's eating a lot of bread. A lot of places.
Bruchim abayim.
I still have this question, by the way.
You don't understand.
No, because logically it doesn't make sense. Right? I mean, if you make something someplace else, that means you never finish. If you can't, that means you broke it. So the opposite should be. I heard what you were saying there, but logically it doesn't fit.
You're saying since you can make a bracha achrona elsewhere,
And you never finished.
till you made a bracha achrona, you never finished.
That's right. It's one way. Otherwise, how could you make one there? They said it was a leniency. But why
You're taking a leniency and you're turning it into a benefit.
No, why did they give you that leniency?
The leniency is that even though your suda is over and you left, I don't care. So you're saying it means your suda is not over.
Otherwise, why did they give you this leniency if it's not?
You're taking the kula and you're giving it an interpretation that's the opposite of what it meant. It meant a leniency. Even though you left and you're done and you're finished and you're gone and it's not connected anymore, it's something that we don't care if the bracha achroin is in a different realm. You understand? That's the part. It's a kula that the Chachamim gave, that even though your sud is interrupted and you left and it's completely over and you're in a different place and in a different world, we don't care if you still make a bracha achrona there. We're fine.
So really it's over.
Yeah, it's a leniency that even though it's over, as they say, it's not over till it's over. In other words, it's over.
Otherwise it wouldn't be a leniency.
Yeah, that's the leniency. If it's bread, they didn't give this leniency. Because it's shahakal, so it doesn't have that chashivus, just like the bracha is a different type of bracha. It doesn't have that chashivus that you have to remain in the place. It's over, and I still let you make the bracha. So now you're using the leniency against it. You understand? You're saying that means it's not interrupted. It is interrupted. That's the leniency.
That's the leniency.
The leniency is ataza, even though the suda is over and you left, I'm letting you make a bracha. We're letting you make a bracha. But it's interrupted, it's over. Mashenkin, if you're eating bread and you left, it's taken not over. Because you got to go back.
Even though you can't make it there.
You can't make it there. But that means there's something pulling you back. You're connected. Because you can't just leave, you can't just go away, you got to go back. Or you could continue eating here and make a bracha here. But when you're continuing eating here, the reason is you should be able to make a bracha achrona on your previous food. In other words, you're continuing the meal. Oh, so that's a separate halacha, that lechatchila you're not supposed to change places by bread unless you had b'deya when you made hamoitzi. But that's a separate halacha. Das doesn't help mitzvah the new bracha by other things. But das helps that when I decided to make hamoitzi on this bread, the makom, I want 2 makoimas for this bread. I want to stretch the makom. You understand? Ein echanami if I don't and I leave and I continue eating that, I don't have to make a new bracha. But lechatchila, the halach is you're not supposed to leave without a bracha unless you had in mind by hamoitzi to go there. Yeah. Yeah. Or another eight is if you have in mind to continue go there and eat there and come back to bench. That's also good. But just to go there and eat there. You don't have to come back. Why should you come back? No, but you have to. Because then you're not allowed to go there. You're not allowed to go to a new place. Even if you're not going to eat there and come back, you're not allowed to. You have to first bench and then go. Because we're scared you're going to forget to come back. Even if you're going to eat there, you're still not allowed to if you didn't have kavanah. Because you're not supposed to leave this place without a bracha. Yeah. The only exception is if you can decide to go there and eat there. So maybe even if you forget to come back, you're good. And you have b'deya to come back, then you're allowed to. Or by hamoitzi you had l'chatchila a deya to stretch your makom. But the B'chis is not talking this nekuda. But if I left, I didn't listen, I left, I don't have to make a new bracha.
And I have to call an edge. Or once I eat over there, I can bench over there.
So if you eat there, you could bench there. You don't have to come back. L'chatchila, you're not supposed to do that. You should bench unless you had b'deya b'hamoitzi to continue. Then you don't have to bench. So then they had b'deya. If this is the system, then it's called das. If this is what I'm doing, if this is the derech and everybody is doing it, so then I know it, even if I didn't have das. Or another eitz is, I think I'm going to continue eating there, but I want to come back. Then it's also good halachically. That's also good. I'm going to go there to eat, but I'm going to bench here. That's also good. That's also good.
It's always best to just, wherever you finish eating this, before you go anywhere.
If you had b'deya to eat somewhere else, by hamoitzi, you don't have to. I can go to your simcha, go bab mitzvah, then I'll have lunch at home. It's fine. I have to have b'deya b'hamoitzi. L'chatchila, yeah, it's not a problem. Because then the makom stretched. So you're not taking away from the chshivas by benching elsewhere. Because you're not uprooting yourself. Generally, you eat bread, just like you have to make a bracha achrona in this place, you also have to make a bracha achrona in a way that you do it before you leave. The same chashivas of the bracha of this food, that you have to make a bracha achrona here, not there. It's also that you have to make a bracha achrona before you leave. You don't leave without it. But if you had in mind l'chatchila that you're going to leave, so then it doesn't take away the chashivas because the place was not one place, it was 2 places. It's like a big room, even though the room is another house. Yeah, it's fine. You understand?
It still maintains the chashivas.
Yeah, it doesn't take away. You understand what I'm saying? The way in the Shulchan Aruch Harav. One second.
You don't know where you go.
No, they also left the table.
You were the guy that they left.
Wait.
Like, I'll be right back.
No, I didn't wait for them to come back.
Right. You weren't sure if they would.
The Balatanya says in Kufay and Chesed, anything they have to make a bracha afterwards in its place because of its chashivas, like bread, for example, you have to make a bracha because it's so chashiv. You also have to make a bracha after it before you leave. Just like its chashivas is effective in the sense that you can't make the bracha elsewhere. It's chashiv and it requires you to make the bracha here. Its chashivas also implies, right, that you have to make a bracha before you leave elsewhere. Just like you can't make a bracha elsewhere, you have to make it here. There's another detail. You can't make it before you leave. You have to make it before you leave. Don't go elsewhere and come back. Just like you have to make it here and not there. And if you go there, you have to come back. There's another din, and that is, Even before you go there and come back, you should make a bracha. Don't leave here before you finish. That's part of the chshivas. It's a gavaldik avar. Are you going to eat somewhere else and make a bracha there? It doesn't help. Because the first achila requires a bracha in its place before you leave. Mitzadat chshivas. The fact that you're going to eat elsewhere only means that you can make a bracha there. But you still lost the chiyuv to make a bracha on the first food in its place before you leave. So just like I have to make a bracha in its place and I shouldn't make a bracha there, I also shouldn't leave there and come back here. Before I leave, I should make a bracha. I am going to eat there, that doesn't help.
It still helps for the bracha there. But
Right. It helps for the bracha there, but it doesn't help for the achila rishona. Right. If I already left and I eat there, I don't have to go back because I can't fix it. I left fafalin. You already dishonored the bread. You're not going to give it back covered by coming back. All you have to do is you have to eat in the second place and make a bracha. You understand? Because once you leave, you're not going to gain anything by coming back. It's fafalin. The chshivas is ois. You left.
You still don't make another bracha.
But you still have to come back if you didn't eat in the new place. But if you ate in the new place, you're good. But lechatchila, you shouldn't leave without a bracha.
And you could get away without going back. Or just
Unless you left a chabura there, huh?
Or you have people there.
What?
Yeah.
Or even if you didn't leave it, if you left people there, you're good. Because then it's not called akira, because they're holding the seats warm. That's one option, right? Another option is if you left people there, so let's say it's Shabbos, yeah, and there's a minyan for mincha, and people stay, you can go and then come back. The truth is, although l'tzarich mitzvah they did let. L'tzarich they let. I'll tell you in a minute.
why by Mesubin Lishkes did they leave a guy? Why do you have to leave a guy? There was tzarech mitzvah. What's the difference?
No, but you still have to make another bracha. According to that shita, you still have to make another bracha. Again, if you left somebody, it's good. Or even if you go and you're going to eat elsewhere, and you decide to come back, it's also good. Okay, also good. And if by hamoitzi you had in mind that you want to eat there, is also good. It's also good. But l'dvar mitzvah for a chassan or a kala or to daven, then you can go and bench when you come back, even though you didn't leave any chaverim, because since it's a mitzvah iveris, if it's a mitzvah that's going to pass like a chassan and a kala, we let you leave and then come back, because we're not, even though you may forget, but because it's a mitzvah, that's when we let you do it.
So if I go to Tish,
so if it's l'tzarich mitzvah, so if you're going to continue eating there is good, but even if you're not going to continue eating there, you could go and then come back because it's a mitzvah iveris, like a chassan and kala. But according to that shita, you would have to make a new bracha because they hold that even bread you have to make a new bracha. If you hold the bread, you don't have to make a new bracha. You're allowed to leave, but you don't have to make a new bracha. Seder. 8:30. Bruchim abayim.
Thank you for joining us.
Was verstanden? Okay.
You were away?
Yeshakayach.